Pacific has always been the world's favourite testing ground, at least for Western nations with their colonial ties.
Once again we watch the fireball as it falls, proclaiming that Britain joins the United States and Russia as a hydrogen bomb power. The first explosion was made in ideal weather conditions, and it is reported that there was a minimum of radioactive fallout.
The Pacific is such a big area, the ocean, not many people living there. But there's still people living there, but probably they were afraid to test it in their own backyard. They should have done that.
Paul, Tui and Joe were all in the Fijian armed forces in the late 50s, when Britain sent 300 Fijian servicemen to Christmas Island in the Kiribati Republic. They were told they were going to Christmas Island for training.
Army is my career, see? All my young days and my good days I spent in the army.
I was only 19 at the time. I was 19 and 19 I left. 19, yeah.
Did you have any idea what an H-bomb really was?
No, we lost. We haven't a clue at that H-bomb. Yeah.
At that time, we were not afraid of anything because we didn't know the meaning of nuclear weapons, of nuclear energy or exposure to radiation. We didn't know what was the meaning of that.
Paul Ahpoy was also 19 when he was sent to Christmas Island. He witnessed 7 of the British atmospheric nuclear tests conducted under the codename Operation Grapple.
This is a hydrogen bomb. It exploded in April 1958.
And where were you when that went off?
We were lined up on the beach.
Back then, Fiji was the British Empire's most loyal colony.
Queen of England is always the Queen of Fiji until now, even though we're a republic.
Britain had already conducted 3 hydrogen bomb tests off Malden Island in the Pacific Ocean. They were declared a success, but not as powerful as predicted. So the order was given to build and test much more powerful bombs. These were tested 30 miles off the coast of Christmas Island.
You got to cover your eyes with the palm of your hand. You close your eyes and cover it with the palm of your hand, just like this.
Still see the light through the palm of your hands, and I can feel the light come through your head, through your brains, and then they'll say flash.
And then they count up until they say blast. The blast, whoo!
To me, on that day, the first one I saw, it looks really beautiful. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was a weapon, explosion. But it looked beautiful at that time, and then turned into like an ice cream cone, ice cream dripping down the side, and then into a huge mushroom.
45 years later, these Fijian servants of the Queen now regret their loyalty. Straight after the tests, Paul suffered from chronic diarrhoea, and 4 years later all of his hair and fingernails fell out, a common story for many of the veterans. At the time, he didn't make the connection between health and radiation exposure. But now Paul's greatest concern is how the radiation seems to have affected his family. His wife had 3 miscarriages before giving birth to their first daughter, Annie.
When she was born, she was perfect in every way, a normally born daughter. But after she was supposed to stand up, she couldn't stand, and she couldn't speak. For 2 years, she was like that, just lying down.
Annie died suddenly at the age of 3.5. Her death certificate says she died of a heart attack.
Is that the answer for, for what I did for serving my country and my queen? And then my daughter had to die. Not only me, the other people as well.
Peter Rokaratu witnessed 3 tests on Christmas Island. He lives in this corrugated iron room with his wife and 2 youngest children.
We're already giving our life, our best, to our country. Mostly Great Britain. There's a colonial time. But this is what we get. A small house.
Peter has 2 potentially fatal blood diseases and extensive tumorous growth all over his body.
More than a dozen.
Paul had 59 of the same type of lumps removed when he was in the Merchant Navy. But Peter can't afford medical treatment.
We are all human beings, eh? They should compensate us on that. They got what they want. The origin bomb there, they got it.
Britain has become a joint custodian of the deadliest weapon yet devised by man.
They used us. What they did is just like we are animals, guinea pigs or something like that.
The British government has always denied this.
Deputy Speaker, that the government's view is that there is no evidence, either medical or scientific, to link participation in the nuclear weapons test programme and the ill health which some of the participants have subsequently suffered.
But these bland assurances are undermined by evidence from the time of the tests. Secret British documents from July 1958 reveal that senior RAF officers deliberately avoided giving blood tests to military personnel serving on Christmas Island in order to escape liability. According to Air Commodore W.R. Staum,
if a person was examined and found to be normal before posting to Christmas Island and who later developed leukemia, it might be difficult to refute the allegation that this was due to radiation received at Christmas Island.
Well, as the colonial power that had absolute authority over the Fiji Islands, Britain had a great responsibility. It was responsible for the health and welfare of the people that were taken there. And I think most important of all, if there were to be any test, they should have ensured that there was absolutely no way that the health and safety of those people were going to be compromised.
Today the British government continues to argue that the tests caused no harm. The man in charge of compensation in Britain is Dr. Lewis Mooney, the Minister for Veterans.
There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest there's a link between the tests and future illness. Sadly, everybody tends to become ill as they get older, and we all naturally try to link it to something in our past.
But now the evidence that are before us would suggest that there were in fact real dangers to these people, and I would go as far as to say that Britain did not take sufficient caution to safeguard the health and security of our people.
But I'm afraid that is just not the case. The intention in every case was to ensure that people were not exposed to radiation, and that is why such great care was taken. Protective clothing was issued, people were mustered well away from any site of explosion when the explosions took place.
We got our socks, boots, long pants, and shirt, long sleeve, and they give us an overall, white overall, right up, cover up everything. A hood, they give us a gas mask, and the anti-flash goggle, gloves. None of our bodies exposed, all covered up.
But only a select group were given protective clothing. The rest simply wore their service uniforms.
Protective clothing would always be issued to anybody whom we thought was likely to be exposed to radiation. The reason why some were given it and some were not is that some would have been expected to be exposed to radiation and some would not have been. Protective clothing was always issued to those who were likely to be exposed.
But Dr. Mooney's own colleagues refuted this 13 years ago when the Labour Party was in opposition.
Is the Minister aware that some servicemen and servicewomen were given protective clothing and some were barred from it and were asked to roll in the dust of the ground at ground zero. It was a deliberate test. Does the minister not accept that? Their health was put at risk deliberately to find out the results.
In fact, a 1953 memo from the Defence Research Policy Committee spells out this deliberate policy of exposing men to radiation in order to monitor its effects.
The Army must discover the detailed effects of various types of explosions on equipment, stores and men, with and without various types of protection.
It wasn't until 40 years after the tests in 1996 that the veterans realised they were suffering from similar illnesses. They'd been brought together for the first time to contribute to a book about their experiences.
Problem been highlighted when we start talking to each other, but all our problems start to come up after all these years. And it's really sad indeed that they didn't tell us at the beginning.
After the book came out, the Fijian veterans got in touch with their British and New Zealand counterparts, who were already fighting for compensation. Then in 1999, Paul travelled to England for a veterans reunion, where they screened films of the tests. What he saw made him realise for the first time that something may have gone terribly wrong.
There was this scientist monitoring some kind of a device, and then the actual explosion started to shake the earth, and then the monitoring device, the whole desk in front of him, the console, moved from one end of the building to the other end of the building, and he stood up. He wanted to run here, and then he wanted to run over there, and then he didn't know what to do, and then he looked around, and then he went and sat down again, trying to desperately to monitor things. And I said to myself, my God, something terrible must have happened on that day.
Known as Grapple Y, this was a massive explosion at 2.8 megatons, 200 times bigger than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Accounts from the veterans of sea water and coral being sucked up by the explosion make it clear that the bomb did explode too close to the water. As the jagged outline on the stem of this mushroom cloud would indicate, it was heavy with debris.
Something really went wrong. And I remember it rained for 2 weeks after that, 2 solid weeks. Christmas is called a desert island. It never rained, but it rained for 2 weeks.
一番最大のものでイギリスは9回ゴールデンとクリスマスをやってますけども、最大規模のものでは、広島の原爆の200倍の規模の水爆を爆発させているということで、いわゆるその規模というもので言えば相当の距離までの放射線の障害が影響があったんじゃないかというようなことなんかも考えられます。
To substantiate their case for compensation, the veterans have enlisted Dr. Sato, a Japanese doctor who specialises in radiation sickness. He visited Fiji in June last year to begin detailed medical tests.
実験直後の各種いくつかの症状ですね、下痢だとか脱毛ですとか歯が抜けたとか、こうしたものは広島長崎での被爆者でも起こったことでありまして、可能性被爆をした可能性というのは十分にあるんじゃないかというふうに思っています。で、あと先ほどの中でちょっと述べなかったんですけども、やはり直接的な被爆よりもむしろ内部被爆の問題が非常に大きかったというふうに今回の調査では思いました。
This internal exposure may have been caused by dust and debris sprayed down after the explosion of Grapple Y. But Dr. Sato says there are also other possible causes.
というのは彼らはほぼ毎週末ぐらいは昔ながらの風習で実験場の近くの海で、魚やカニ、それからエビを取って食べていたということですね。これも昔ながらの風習ですし。
The Fijian veterans claimed they were never told not to eat the fish. They also drank water distilled from the ocean and washed in the rain after the tests.
This machine probes for contamination by the deadly beta and gamma rays most harmful of the bomb's radiation effects.
This testing done for radiation on Christmas Island would not have detected internal exposure caused by consuming contaminated food and water.
No single item of equipment.
What makes the veterans' legal case even more difficult is that the British government has refused to release essential data collected during the tests. Without this information, it's impossible to know how much radiation the veterans may have been exposed to.
そうですね。一つはイギリス政府、イギリスが英国がこの問題について科学的なデータを一切公表していないっていうことからそもそも非常に私は疑いを持つというふうに思うんですね。もし安全だったというふうに正々堂々と言えるのであれば実験のデータを公にすべきだと思います。
The British representative in Fiji wouldn't grant Dateline an interview. It seems they were more concerned about their building being filmed.
Okay, my name's John Dyson. I'm a Deputy High Commissioner.
Yeah.
What are you doing, please, can I ask?
Yes, I'm making a documentary
For
SBS Television in Australia on the veterans of the nuclear tests.
I mean, one phone call, and the boys in blue will be here, and they'll just take you away.
Okay,
That is not an idle threat, I promise you. That would happen.
They've always said that they have no responsibility whatsoever. They were in good health. Their current health has no relation to the test in those days. So that's the stand that Britain has been taking, which is most unfair and very unfortunate.
I don't think our response has been unfair in any way. As I have said, we are always prepared to accept liability where a link can be shown. Very, very careful records were taken of every test that we carried out, and there is absolutely no evidence to substantiate any of the claims that have been made.
While Paul continues to gather evidence from other veterans of the tests, their campaign is beginning to have an impact. The Fijian government is cautiously supporting their claims for compensation and politely requesting a dialogue with Britain.
Well, I think the very least is to start talking to the Fijian government and other governments that were affected, even if only to determine whether there is a case or not. That would be a very good start.
But in this David and Goliath struggle, the British are unlikely to be swayed by such soft voices. More likely is continued denial and delay until the veterans die out. As Paul Ahpoy keeps saying, time is not on our side.
I just want the fact. I want the story to be spread out all over the world for everybody to know. Even here in Fiji, not many people know what we went through. Yeah, we are the forgotten soldiers and sailors of Fiji, and we must be remembered for our services.
Reported and filmed by Olivia Rousset.